Good evening, visitors. Welcome to the Australian War Memorial's Last Post ceremony. My name is Gerard Pratt, and joining us today from the Royal Australian Air Force is Warrant Officer Eden Stubbings. We warmly welcome the family of Sergeant Frederick John Hilliar Alford, whose story will be told shortly. We warmly welcome Mr. John P. Scuddy, Boeing, USA, who is also attending this evening's ceremony. And as always, we welcome the veterans who have served, those that are still serving, and the families that love and support them. We acknowledge the members of RSL and Services Clubs Association, RSL Victoria and RSL Queensland, who are watching the broadcast of this ceremony from across Australia. During this evening's ceremony, wreaths will be laid at the base of the Pool of Reflection by family, visitors and students on behalf of the following schools. From Queensland, Ayr State High School, and from New South Wales, Army Cadets representing the 23rd Battalion. If able, please stand and join in singing the National Anthem. The Australian War Memorial was the vision of Charles Bean, Australia's First World War official historian. Bean landed with the Australian troops on Gallipoli and stayed with them at the front through until the end of the war. The idea of this national memorial and museum came to him at Pozières, France, in the depths of the bloody fighting of 1916. Bean's idea was that this would be a place where families and friends could mourn loved ones buried in faraway lands. It would also be a place that could help all Australians understand what these men and women had endured and what they had done for us. Bean's vision, to which we remain true, is best expressed as inscribed in the entrance to the memorial's galleries. Here is their spirit, in the heart of the land they loved, and here we guard the record which they themselves made. Tonight, we will read the story behind just one of those on the Roll of Honour, which lists the names of more than 102,000 men and women who have given their lives for us in war and on operations for more than a century. But first, we present a lament, Flowers of the Forest. Wreaths or floral tributes will now be laid at the base of the Pool of Reflection.
Today we remember and pay tribute to Sergeant Frederick John Hilliar Alford. Frederick John Hilliar Alford, known as Fred to his family and friends, was born in 1891 near Canberra, New South Wales, the son of Emily and William Alford. Fred had 2 brothers and 3 sisters. He attended a local school before working as a farmer and grazier. He lived at Woodstock near Canberra and before the war served for 3 years in the local Canberra Voluntary Light Horse Regiment. His brother Thomas also served in the local militia and later served on Gallipoli and in Egypt as part of the 6th Light Horse Brigade. Fred enlisted in the Australian Imperial Force in February 1916 and trained at Cootamundra. He sailed from Sydney in September and after a brief period of training in England, sailed for the Western Front in Europe. Fred arrived in France in mid-December 1916 and joined the 56th Battalion just in time for the terribly cold winter of that year. Fred's previous military experience serving in the militia in Australia clearly made him a useful and reliable soldier. Throughout his time on the Western Front, he was promoted 3 times. In April 1917 from private to lance corporal, in September to corporal, and in October to acting sergeant. Fred and the 56th Battalion spent months manning the trenches of the Somme region of northern France, enduring the hardships of the freezing winter conditions and the drudgery and horror of trench warfare. Their time was split between resting and training behind the front and facing intermittent enemy artillery and machine gun fire while manning the front line. In early 1917, the 56th Battalion pursued German forces retreating to the Hindenburg Line, a newly constructed series of fortified trenches and dugouts designed to shorten and strengthen German defensive positions. The 56th Battalion also defended gains made by Australian forces at the Second Battle of Bullecourt, an engagement that cost Australian forces nearly 7,500 casualties. In 1917, the focus of British operations shifted north to Flanders in Belgium. Fred and the 56th Battalion also moved north, and on the 26th of September participated in the Battle of Polygon Wood. Fred's division formed the right flank of an attack in which Australian forces were to advance 1,500 metres through the shattered remains of a young plantation. The day before the operation, German forces attacked British forces to Fred's immediate south, jeopardising the Allied plans. However, the offensive proceeded, and at 5:50 a.m, a massive artillery barrage signalled the beginning of the Australian assault. The attack was successful and objectives were gained. However, German artillery and counterattacks cost Australian forces over 5,500 casualties in a single day. Fred's conduct during the Battle of Polygon Wood led his commanding officer to recommend him for a military medal. In his citation made on the 5th of October, the officer wrote, "After capturing the final objective, this NCO displayed fine coolness and leadership in consolidating his post on the extreme right flank, walking about under heavy rifle and machine gun fire in the execution of his duty. Although very short-handed, Corporal Searle and himself kept the enemy at bay until I was able to reinforce them. He was very active in putting down the heavy sniping of the enemy during the first 2 days and was of great assistance to me." On the 17th of October, the 56th Battalion was in the process of relieving the Australian 60th Battalion at Westhurk Ridge near Ypres when they came under heavy German high explosive artillery fire. Fred received severe wounds, including a fractured skull and shrapnel wounds to his back. He spent the next 8 days in critical condition and at the 3rd Canadian Casualty Clearing Station, and on the 25th of October succumbed to his wounds. He was 26 years old. Today, his remains lie buried in the Lisenhurst Military Cemetery in Belgium, along with over 9,000 Commonwealth soldiers of the First World War. His grieving family left the following epitaph on his grave: one of the best, a brother dearly loved, sadly missed by all he knew. News of the tragedy inflicted a double blow on the Alford family. Fred's father, heartbroken at the news of his son's death, died 3 weeks after hearing the news. And in a final cruel twist, the ship carrying Fred's possessions to his family in Australia sunk after being torpedoed by a German U-boat. Sergeant Frederick John Hilliar Alford is listed on the Roll of Honour on my right, among almost 62,000 Australians who died while serving in the First World War. His photograph is displayed today beside the pool of reflection. This is but one of the many stories of service and sacrifice told here at the Australian War Memorial. We now remember Sergeant Frederick John Hilliar Alford, who gave his life for us, for our freedoms, and in the hope of a better world.
Please stand for the reading of the Ode and the sounding of the last post.
They shall grow not old, as we that are left grow old. Age shall not weary them, nor the years condemn. At the going down of the sun, and in the morning, we will remember them.
We will remember them.
Lest we forget.
Lest we forget. We leave you this evening with the words of the memorial's founder, Charles Bean. Many a man lying out there at Pozières or in the low scrub at Gallipoli with his poor tired senses barely working through the fever of his brain has thought in his last moments, well, it's over. But in Australia, they will be proud of this. Ladies and gentlemen, girls and boys, that concludes the last post ceremony. We thank you all for visiting the Australian War Memorial and wish you all a very good evening. Thank you.